Welcome to Our Drummers Musicians, your backstage pass to Melbourne's vibrant music scene. Normally recorded on a cosy couch in Brunswick, today we are coming to you from our guest's home, but still continuing our exploration of what it truly means to be a musician by speaking with the diverse talents that make music in our city. Today we're chatting with amazing drummer and percussionist Daniel Farrugia, an accomplished musician known for his extensive work in the Australian music industry. Danny has become a sought-after musician for both recording and touring, contributing to a vast array of projects. He's perhaps best known for his collaborations with the Cat Empire, Luke Howard Trio, Angus and Julia Stone, Tina Arena, The Bamboos, Missy Higgins, Renee Geyer, and Tinpan Orange. Danny's unique sound and ability to adapt to various music styles has made him a versatile band member and session musician. He's also taken his passion for music a step further by building his own drum recording studio, which started as a practice space and has evolved into a professional studio that rivals British drummer Ash Sowen's Windmill Studio. In 2018, Danny released his first solo album, Drums and Omnichord, amongst other things, followed by Replicants in 2021 and Avalanche last year. Join us as we dive into Danny's musical journey, explore his passion for drums and the Omnichord, and possibly even ask about his experience getting the call to step in for Grammy-winning US drummer Chris Dave during the world tour of Angus and Julia Stone. We want to take a moment to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nations as the traditional custodians of the land area where we are recording this podcast today. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
Thanks for having me in your home.
Well, yeah, welcome. I mean, it's not the cozy couch in Brunswick, but hopefully Listerfield is on par.
Oh, it's great with hot tea and blankets.
That's right.
It's great. I'd like to ask, what's the most recent album that you've listened to?
What's happening? Listening, Rufus and Shaka Khan. I don't know which album it's called, but that's the most recent album I've listened to, and that's because I was listening to a podcast, an interview with Jim Keltner, and he was talking about one particular track he played on. So, that's
cool.
What happens. You hear the story behind it, and they played the drum intro that he had performed on this record, and it's like, okay, I've got to listen to that album now. And so, that's what's going on.
Cool. Do you find yourself going often on these rabbit holes of like hearing someone mention a track and then diving into, that track and then what else they played on? And
all the time. It's sort of, I would say my listening to music is, okay, I'm going to divide it into quarters here. There's definitely a quarter of listening that is the rabbit hole listen. Okay, I've heard Jim Keltner played on this. Here's the story. I've got to listen to that album. Mm-hmm. Then a quarter of the listening would be, I've got to learn these songs for gigs.
Yep.
A quarter of the listening would be, I really like listening to Raikuda, so I'm just going to put that record on. And it doesn't even really have any drums in it maybe, or whatever the album is. It's just like, I'm not even listening to it for the drums. I just like the music.
Yep.
And then the last quarter would be the music that my kids want to listen to. So when we're in the car and they're requesting songs, I like to try to keep it pretty fair, like song for song, rotate around the car.
Yes.
So I do have to endure some of their music.
I hope you're not like my dad, who we did the family like road trips, one song each for each of the four family members. Yeah. And Dad would pick these like 17-minute fusion tracks, just to,
Yeah, look, I'm not that kind of dad. That said, though, sometimes I'll pick a song for 4 or 5 minutes, and my kids will be like, "Whoa, that's not fair," because a lot of the stuff they want to listen to is like 2-minute snippets of things. Yeah. That said, though, my last album I put out was all like 2-minute things as well. So I don't know. Maybe that's the way of the future, or it's not. But yeah, I'm pretty fair with sharing the load.
Nice.
But I imagine for you, like going on road trips, how did that happen? This is like, I'm talking about Spotify or Apple Music where you can just do a song. Like when I was a kid, look, I'm older than you, but yeah, it was like a cassette tape. So
Yeah,
you wouldn't do song for song.
We had like a multi-track, like multi-disc CD player in the car. So you had like 6 discs.
The CD stacker.
The CD stacker. Yeah, so everybody would put an album in.
Yeah.
And then you could rotate through and pick like which track from your album. And then whilst the other person's track was playing, pick like the next track you wanted from your album or put in a whole different album.
That's so cool. Yeah, I remember we had a CD stacker which was actually in the boot of the car.
Oh.
So you'd have to load like 6 CDs into this cartridge in the boot.
Yes.
And then you could queue them up.
Okay. Yeah, a preloaded playlist.
Which is kind of cool. You had to plan your trip, I guess. Like, yeah, or put great records in or great albums in that, you know, you didn't want to change.
Yes.
Because, you know, no one's going to pull over, go to the boot to change the CD.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your like solo albums.
Yes.
The final track of the latest one, Farewell Omnichord.
Yeah.
Is that the end of you and the Omnichord?
My relationship with the Omnichord, it's over. You know, that first album that I did was kind of based around the Omnichord and drums, hence the title of the album. But, you know, I occasionally will sprinkle a little Omnichord on a recording now, but it's kind of seen its thing. I wanted to try to steer away from that in the last album, Avalanche, and really try to just make sounds from organic percussive instruments. That was sort of my plan there. So, you know, the Omnichord, you know, yeah, didn't really fit. I if there was a sprinkling of color that I wanted from the Omnichord, it's like, well, maybe I can get this from a vibraphone, or maybe I can get it from some shakers or something else that's in the percussive world.
Sure.
And then that last tune was a bit kind of somber, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make this the final tune on the album, and farewell Omni. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So what's the like plan for when you come up with the concept? Sorry, not what's the plan. What do you think when you came with the concept that I want to make everything from an acoustic instrument, like as much as possible? Are you thinking that in like a more formal like planning process of an album, or is it just something that like develops when you go, okay, it's the time for, you know, like the last album? What's the process?
Yeah, well, those sorts of plans, I guess it's more a bit of a framework for my head to try to get creative in that world. Mm-hmm. So if I don't set any kind of limitations or parameters around it, I mean, you know, I've got a room full of kind of instruments. I sort of could make anything, but if I do set some boundaries, like, or not even boundaries, but just guidelines of like, try to make music with just percussion, it just gets me to go down a particular path and try to get creative using those tools.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and the first album was that. It was drums and Omnichord. It was like, okay, how can I try to make songs with just these two instruments? Do I start with a drum beat and then add Omnichord, or do I like try to come up with a chord progression and then add drums to it like I would normally do if I was recording on someone else's song, you know? So that was the first album, and yeah, and then this last one, I wanted to stay away from the Omnichord. And also, it's a bit of a challenge to myself. I make these albums also just to build up a wider palette of sound in my own arsenal. So if I'm given creative freedom to just make any kind of song out of percussive instruments, I find that if I verb out particular rain sticks, that I get a texture or a sound, or if I put delays on bongos. I can manipulate them a certain way. And by discovering those textures, it's then when I go to record someone else's song and they want me to come up with parts, aside from the drum kit, I might have a few little tricks up my sleeve, like, check out this thing I can do with the bongos and a tape delay that I've discovered by being creative in my own space.
Yeah, cool.
And now I can offer a bit of that for someone else's song. And that's really worked for me to the point where sometimes, normally if I record tracks for people and percussion, I'll just send them the raw stems for them to mix. But a couple of times I'll get wiggy on percussive overdub sounds to the point where I will then have to send them my bounced files of how I've treated it and, manipulated the sound.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What's it like when you're getting these requests from artists to record? Is it generally just you be you, because we know who you are and what you can do, so like here's a bit of an idea, but it's totally yours? Or do you get like a full variety where some people are like, I specifically want you to play this or get this exact sound?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Most of it is more on the side of, can you just do your thing? But also, I don't really promote myself in that world of studio, drummer for hire and send me your tracks. Like, I don't really do that. So most of the people that do ask me to do things are musicians that I already collaborate with or know, or other people that have been recommended me by a friend. So there is a bit more of a trust involved where people are like, oh yeah, Danny will be cool. Let him do his thing on this.
Yep.
Occasionally there's been some projects where I've done for people where they've, it's been really strict. Like, oh, we just want to replicate 30 or 40 seconds of this drum sound, which is really exciting for me too, because I have to sort of challenge myself and go, okay, how do they do that? Try to reverse engineer it a little and figure it out. And I'm no, officially qualified recording engineer too. So I'm just using my ears and, moving mics around, tuning drums differently, just trying to figure it out to my ear. So there is a bit of that, which I really enjoy. Sometimes the middle area can get tricky working remotely. So when someone sends a track and it's kind of like, oh yeah, would love you to play on this, do your thing, not going to tell you much more. And then you record something and I might really feel passionate about a particular part or feeling that I'm able to give the song, and I'll go down a full rabbit warren of making the right sounds and getting into it. And I might even sort of quote like, oh, it'll take me half a day, and it takes me a full day because I get excited by it. But then I'll submit that, like send the mix through to someone. They're like, no, that's not what we're after. Like more like this. And in those situations, sometimes you just kind of wish like, oh, I wish they'd just given me a clearer brief of what they wanted, which is fine. But, sometimes people don't know exactly what they want and they need to hear something and bounce back and forth. I totally get it. I know some people, I speak to a few drummers about this, regularly. Actually, we kind of just trying to navigate how it works. And I know some people, before they go too far down the path of recording the drums and the percussion, they might even just send a bit of a guide through from their phone.
Oh, okay.
Like, hey, this is what I had in mind. What do you think? And then send that to the songwriter, just to get the okay before they go down the path, which is clever to do that. Maybe I should do that too. But and sometimes I get really clear briefs where it's like, okay, I want 3 parts, one with this groove, which is on the guide track already, and then give me another pass with that and do some more fills, and then give me a third pass of something completely different.
Okay.
And it's kind of cool, what they're after, and you can do it. It takes out the mind reading aspect of it.
Yeah, sure.
Which I think we're all sort of learning to navigate to do remotely. I was fortunate enough to, be recording things in an era where there was more studios happening and bands were recording together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing what you can pick up just on body language and people being in the room together.
Yes.
When you do a pass or come up with an idea and someone can just, maybe if they don't respond straight away, it's like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the coolest tambourine part. I'll try something different. Whereas when you're remote recording, you might think it's the coolest part. Yeah, actually, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to overlap it with something else. And yeah, it's just not the right thing for the song. But you don't get that feedback until you send the email with the attached file. And then, the day after you hear back. And anyway.
So do you get to do any like studio stuff, or because you've got such a great studio at home, you're basically only doing, the home recording thing now?
Oh, look, it sort of comes and goes in waves. I mean, there's still bands that love recording in studios together, and I think that is kind of my preferred method. Like, I was talking to another great drummer about this the other night, Tony Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about, he was just saying, he's like a people's person. Like, he just loves being around people. So he doesn't have a home drum studio. He would rather be with people in a room, and that makes complete sense. Like, I get that. And I was saying to him, it's like, man, also the ideas you can get from other musicians. Might be the guitarist in the band that says, oh, why don't you try this part on the hi-hat, or don't play any hi-hat at all.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get some great ideas from other musicians when you're in the room with them. If you're not in the room with them, you don't get those ideas. So so I've been fortunate enough to have that experience and still get that experience with bands. But I also love recording from home, like, pretty cool. I've got a nice little room out there and lots of drums. So I feel quite good about, like there was a producer here the other day, and we were recording a couple of tracks for an artist, and that was great that he was able to come to the studio and we just be in the room together. But, there was a part on one of his drum guides, and I was like, oh, let's overdub that with snare drums. Make it like a marching snare drum thing. And, I've got half a dozen snare drums out there, so we start layering up. I was like, oh, and an orchestral bass drum hitting the downbeats would be cool.
Yeah.
And I've got a big 26-inch bass drum out there too to do that. So, trying to get all that in the car to go to a studio can be tricky.
Yeah.
And unless it's a session that runs for over a week, if it's a one-day session where you drive to a studio, I wouldn't take all that gear, because I also know chances are we're going to be trying to get through songs and no one has time to listen to me kind of go, hey guys, can we try some, orchestral bass drum overdubs on this, when there's a whole band there waiting to record multiple songs.
Yep.
But sometimes I might even do that at home afterwards as well.
Okay.
So it's, best of both worlds there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how do you go about balancing all of your studio recording work with choosing how much time that you want to spend touring and playing live with bands?
Yeah. I don't really have a plan to make it balance perfectly. I don't think there is. I can't do that. I just do whatever I can and just prioritize what needs to be the priority. Touring's a big priority at the moment. The last year I've been touring with the Cat Empire, and those tours can't be shifted. That's the thing. It's when we're going away to Europe for the month of July, that's what it is, Yeah. There's no moving that around. Whereas the studio, part of the reason why I have the studio is to try to give me a bit of flexibility with work. So if someone does want something recorded and chances are they have some flexibility, and that's why they're doing it remotely, because they're not booking another studio and trying to plan other musicians. I can get a bit more flexible with the time. Say, hey, you know, is it cool if you wait a couple of weeks until I get back? And yeah, most of the time it is. Yeah, so that's how I balance it.
Well, what's it been like with the Cat Empire? Like, you know, taking over the chair from Will Hull Brown.
Yeah, it's been an honor. He's totally one of my favorite drummers, and we actually have a lot of back and forth with one another just about drums. And at the moment, we're on the Rudiment Ritual together a lot.
Okay.
And you know, sending each other little audio snippets of what we're working on. So I've always had so much respect for him and his playing and his parts. And I've filled in for him on previous tours before I joined the band over the years. So it's always been an honor to sit in that chair. It feels great, man. The band feels really good.
Awesome. And
it's exciting. You know, touring's great. Traveling's great. I enjoy that aspect of it too. You know, and there's a lot of trust there from the band with me too, to just kind of do my thing. So
yeah,
you know, that's always really appreciated and makes it feel really comfortable on the shows and also in the studio too. Like now we've just finished recording a second album with this new lineup, and it's great being creative in the studio with the band as well, and coming up with parts. And yeah, there's a lot of respect in the room for everyone, so it's a real pleasure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, like, you know, you're one of my favorite drummers, and
thank you.
it feels very special to be able to ask you all these questions about you know, what you're working on and what you've been doing, because I, you know, have just sort of followed on enthusiastically from the sidelines. And, you know, in the intro, it was a bit of excitement for me looking through like your discography and the old like tours and stuff like that. And I think the first time I saw you play was ages ago with the Bamboos.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, even just looking at like the bands that you're most known for playing with, they're all from quite different styles. Like, you know, you've got the Cat Empire, but then that you're in, and you're also in the Luke Howard trio, and they're just completely musical worlds apart.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, they are, but they're sort of not too. I mean, there's still an energy and a attentiveness that just goes on to playing that music. You know, yeah, I'm just trying to make things feel good and sound good. You know, when you step back at it and, you know, sort of take away the genre specific thing, it's all the same, you know, like it's, you know, and playing with Luke and Jonathan is a real connection thing between the three of us that we're going for. And, you know, you're sort of trying to do that in any ensemble really. You know, like just playing together.
Yeah.
Creating music together. But yeah, I mean, yeah, stylistically things are in genre categories, yeah, they're sort of all around the place.
Has it always been a thing for you where you're just playing to create a feeling and not thinking about, well, like clearly you're very proficient in lots of styles, so you have like the technique that you've built up to be able to do, you know, stylistically relevant things, but has your mindset always just been, I'm just creating a feeling regardless of what, you know, ensemble you're with?
Yeah, you know, look, it's most of the time it's trying to just make things feel comfortable for everyone around me. And that could be even sort of aside from like specific technique styles, but is the volume right for this ensemble? You know, certain things require a certain volume of the drums to make other people on stage feel comfortable. Whether it's really loud because everyone's on in-ears and have clicks, so you've just got to like really bash it out. Or it's with Luke and Jonathan at the Jazz Lab and we didn't sound check and someone forgot to turn the PA on, so it's just all acoustic. Which has happened once, and it was actually really good. It was difficult because I had to really kind of try to bring the volume of the drums down. And they're kind of loud drums in that room, the house kit. So, but yeah, it's kind of cool. Like, I'd sort of dig the challenge of that as well. Like, how do we make this work now? You know, that's sort of part of the fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, you kind of just build up great experience and more kind of arsenal to become a better musician. I've always found that early days when I was studying at the VCA, you know, and I was doing a jazz course, and I started playing regularly with Mia Dyson. And I played with her for years, and she was a real great musical influence on me. And it was funny because, you know, they're sort of like rockier, bluesier Americana gigs, but you know, sometimes people would, you know, you'd get chatting to people after a show and they'd be like, oh, I can tell you're a bit of a jazz drummer and you've got this kind of lighter touch sensibility about you, you know. And they appreciate that. And I enjoyed offering that in that context. And then I might be on a jazz gig the next night and not be afraid to like lay it into a bit of a shuffle somewhere, you know, and dig into the 2 and 4 a bit harder than maybe a usual sort of jazz drummer would do. And someone might say, oh, you've got a bit more of that kind of like pop sensibility about you, you know, like, yeah. Or I liked how you just stayed on brushes the whole tune as if it was a part to a song, you know, on a jazz gig rather than like going straight to sticks for the solo or whatever.
Yes.
And you know, that's something that I felt like I've stolen from the sort of pop singer-songwriter world and was able to then bring it into the jazz performance. So it all feeds itself, which is great. Yeah.
Do you have a preference for the like role of in like band member versus like sessional, come and play this show with us, or, you know, do the recording?
Oh man, like I don't have a preference. I see the pros and cons in it all, you know, like yeah, it'd be, I mean, I'm just a session player in a lot of things, you know, and which is difficult because if then I can't do something, they'll just get someone else. So then you potentially you might have lost a gig as well, which can be stressful, you know, and so you're trying to just juggle all these plates and hopefully nothing overlaps and you can maintain a nice year of performing. And I think like, oh geez, wouldn't it be cool just to be in a band and be like a permanent member of that band? But then there's stresses involved in that too, you know, like you see bands that have to like, okay, we've got a budget for this tour, and if they don't sell enough tickets, they could lose money, or there's rolling the dice and the gamble of it all as well. And as a session musician, you don't have to sort of be involved in that. You can be like, well, you know, look, you booked me, this is my rate, or this is what, you know, we agreed on, that's it. You know? They might make more money, they might make less money, they might have to deal with extra promotional requirements on tour. You know, oh, they've got to go and do this interview and that interview, and I get the day off and get to walk around New York City or something. Like, so yeah, it's all good, and I'm just grateful to sort of be part of it all, and happy to see that, you know, yeah, it's not easy to navigate whatever side you're on. So if you can have a bit of both going and make it work, amazing.
I guess, like, yeah, I was a bit prescriptive when I said, like, you know, how do you balance it? But it's just about, like, making the most of whatever's going.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, you know, it's like sometimes it's like, you know, I can be away I remember going away for a month or 2 months with Angus and Julia, and then, you know, coming home and a few days, like going to play at a wedding gig in the wedding band and playing Big Jet Plane in the wedding band. It's like, man, I've just been on tour with these guys, and it's pretty, it's just crazy to think about that. But that's how it is. It's just like, I'm just trying to balance it all, and it's all good. Like, I sort of enjoy it all. So I've never I would never be for example, like at that wedding gig going like, oh, this sucks playing this song because I've just played it on stage with these people. It's like, nah, it's cool. Yeah. And the other thing is too, like in both scenarios, there are people there enjoying the music. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wedding gigs can be great too.
100%. I'm into them.
So, I wanted to ask about like the Angus and Julia tour.
Yeah.
Because when they put out that album with Rick Rubin, which is like 10 years ago now, I think.
Probably about that. Yeah.
What was it like coming in to like take over mid-world tour where the album was massive and had so much attention, and there was so much like of a vibe around it because it was cool and it had been a while since they'd done something together. What was it like when you got the call, but then also like just playing those shows?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. Also just from the drummer's sensibility, knowing that Chris Dave was on drums. It's like, whoa. But but also it's Chris Dave wasn't playing that show like a drumhead show. So it was kind of cool. Like I he was playing the songs. So essentially I had to just come in and play the songs too.
Yep.
But yeah, it was kind of scary that it was him before me. But this is the thing. It's like, it is all, even when I think back now to that opportunity, and it was a great opportunity because I toured with them for years after that. And I always think that these things come about because of two things. There is like work that goes involved into being prepared for the opportunity, but there's also luck, and I've had this discussion with certain people too, that like they think like, oh, it's all luck based or it's all just work. I really think it is a combination. I had worked with Julia before that, and they were in New Zealand when Chris Dave had to leave the tour, and they were coming to Australia next. So I had a relationship with the band already, and it was luck that they were coming to Australia.
Yes.
If that had happened and they were in Europe or in America, I'm sure someone else would have got the call. So that was the luck. But then, I remember, I think I got the call on a Friday, and Julia was going to be in town on the Monday. So, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to do the gig or not. It was like it was just like, could you be on standby? And I had a couple of gigs that weekend, which I cancelled, and they were kind of cool gigs. I spoke to the people and they were kind of cool with it and they could find someone else. But I essentially just stayed home to learn an hour and a half of music. They'd sent me a live video of a concert with Chris on drums and the current band. So, I wanted to roll with that luck and put in the work, to do the best possible job. And then, so we got together on the Monday and sort of ran the set, and it was cool. Like,
wow.
And then it was, okay, can you come to Perth tomorrow and do the first show? And that was it, like sort of, yeah.
Wow.
A few years later, I was still kind of touring the world with them, which was a great experience. And we had a great time. So that's how that went down.
Have you had a chance to like thank D'Angelo for assisting with the timing.
How do you know about that? I didn't say anything about D'Angelo.
No, I know.
Yeah. Chris went into the D'Angelo gig on short notice, you know. D'Angelo's a big gig.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of made for that. Like, it makes a lot of sense that Chris Dave is on D'Angelo's gig.
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah. Well, if I meet D'Angelo, I will thank him.
Well, we've been playing this game on the podcast where I get each guest to ask a question of the next guest.
Wow. Okay.
So if you're up for playing...
Do I know who the next guest is, or do I just ask a question?
Yeah, you just ask. But if you'd like, I'll give you the question of the previous guest for you to answer first.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. This is from singer Abbey Rose.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, it's five-pronged. It's a five-pronged question. Name 5 times where you felt enveloped by and at home within a song. So I guess the question is 5 songs where you felt like you burrowed and nestled into the song and made it your house, your sonic house. 5 tunes, that's the question. Bye.
Yeah, wow. Great question. 5. Yeah. I'm trying to think like live and recording as well. There's definitely both. And the live, there's some things like live, yeah, for sure. I felt like playing Big Jet Plane.
Mm-hmm.
I had this thing, like percussive kind of nut. You know those like those nuts?
Yeah, like the seed sort of
the seed
thing.
things. Like I would play that part with that in one hand and a brush in the other.
Oh, cool.
And kind of came up with this sort of rhythm. And that felt really good. And I felt like, yeah, that's my home on that song.
Mm-hmm.
That was great live. Studio. And there's and some live things. Luke Howard Trio, playing 752. There's a song that we play 752, which definitely has a drum thing that goes on. That is, I feel like that's kind of my world.
Yes.
Yeah. Most of the song is I purposefully, it has a part, you know, like. Which is just quarter notes on the cymbal, which is great. But then there's a bridge section, which, you know, I just go for it.
Yeah. And
I allow myself to sort of forget the responsibility of time. Because leading up to that point, it's all about steady quarter notes on the cymbal. So it's such a contradiction when it comes to the bridge that disappears. And time disappears, and it becomes more of an explosion of sound. So I feel like that's very me as well.
Yeah,
you know, when I'm doing that.
Oh, totally.
And then there's some studio things. Now, studio things, I can't always tell in the moment if it is or not. Sometimes it's when you hear it back, when it's been mixed. You know, maybe months later I get something back and kind of go, yes. But there's some in the moment ones, especially recording with Tinpan Orange. We did an album. I keep saying record, but they are records, but they're albums, yeah. Anyway, we did an album called Over the Sun. That's when I first met that band. And I reckon there were a couple of tunes on that I felt like, oh, this is me. Totally. One was a tune called Supergirl. So I just had this kind of great sort of part, this drum part that they hadn't thought of, and it sort of changed the song
Okay.
a bit, the feeling of the song.
Yeah, right.
which was cool. And then there was another track we did on that album, which was a great example. I forget what it was called. Maybe I'll look it up, and you can edit it in. I could look it up on my phone now, but it's a 12/8 song, and we knew it. I think we all felt it actually, but this was a pivotal point for me recording. We were recording with an engineer, Stephen Schramm, and sort of up until that point, often I would record drums and not get a real sense of how they were sounding in the mix. Mm-hmm. You know, you're just hearing something kind of clean sounding through the headphones, and I was almost at the point where sometimes I wouldn't even want headphones on. You know, it maybe obviously to hear the other bands, but it's like, oh, don't give me any drum mics. Like, I just want to hear the drums, you know, acoustically. But Stephen would like just treat recording in a way that I wanted to hear what he was hearing. So then I wanted to hear the mix, and he would record things and process them while he was recording them to create a feeling and a sound for the song. So I really took that on board. And so, yeah, the song's called Lamb. That's right.
Okay.
You know, and it was one of those moments, like just being in that moment in the studio and having like the headphones on, but feeling like this is it. This is, yeah, really good.
Wow.
So I don't always get that from the studio, you know. So yeah, there was that experience. I did get that another time actually. So I'm up to 5 now. There could be some more actually, but I thought 5 was going to be difficult, but here we go. Oh, hang on. There's heaps more. Tongan Steel by the Bamboos.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That track we did in the UK with Quantic.
Oh.
Engineered that.
Okay.
Yeah, in his little studio, and that was like 8-track tape machine.
Cool.
And we just sort of jammed and came up with that track.
Okay.
And I love the sound of it. That was really special. Recording the Magnolia album. This is Magnolia.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard that one. That's
No, I
with
don't know that one.
Luke Howard and Lenny Gregorian, Ryan Munro on bass, Ross Irwin and Ben Edgar.
Okay.
And
I'll have to check it
that
out.
was like, you know, not much was said. Mm-hmm. We just kind of went into the studio and played.
Okay.
And we were all kind of on the same wave. Yeah, so, you know, and that music felt really, just feels really natural and enjoyable for me to play. So, yeah, there's some examples. That's like a 7-pronged answer to the 5-pronged question.
Oh, well, thanks. That was a really nice, insight into a whole range of different things from you.
Yeah, you know, it's all different.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, that's the thing too, like to try to sort of put any kind of expectation on what you think something should be or is going to be. I think you're already kind of not doing yourself any favors there. Like, whereas if you just allow things to be, hey, this is what it is, let's not get too bogged down in referencing or comparing to other things. Just, you know, let it happen.
Yep.
Because sometimes, you know, like, you know, I'm not playing on number 1 hits or anything like that. You know, like I get to play on a lot of music I just enjoy. And then if you have a good process that's not stressful, makes it more enjoyable for me to listen to.
Yeah.
You know, I guess. But you know, ultimately a listener doesn't know all that stuff, so they either like it or not.
Yep.
Whatever. But yeah. Anyway, there you go.
Well, thank you.
That's a long answer.
That was cool. Apologies to Abby because I forgot to ask her to ask the next question to guest, so she submitted that to me post recording.
Oh, great.
But I'll remember to ask you. What would you like to ask the next guest?
Well, if the next guest Can you tell me if it's a drummer or not?
Well, so far I haven't been telling anyone who the next guest is. Like,
'Cause
they're
I'm always-
music adjacent.
I'm always curious to know what someone else in the band wants from the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do they want to hear?
Sure.
What feeling do they want from the drums? You know, I think that's kind of important. And I've gotten a lot of musical references of drummers to check out from non-drummers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, why? Yeah, when a guitarist is like, oh, you got to check out this drummer. You know, where a drummer might not be so into that person.
Yes.
You know, because maybe they're technically not doing the right thing or something. But it's like, no, but it works for someone else. Like, yeah. So that would be a question for a non-drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, what do you want to hear and what do you want to feel from that drummer in your band? Yeah, I could think of a question for a drummer if you like.
Yeah, why not? Well, I'll take a drummer
okay.
question and then I'll bank it.
Sure.
If the next guest is not a drummer, I
Do
can't
you think?
remember.
Do you think the the 26 standard rudiments are compatible with like playing drum set in modern music?
Nice. I wonder who's going to get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
There you go.
Well, thank you. Well, before I finish with our like 5 quick answer questions,
Yeah.
is there any chance that Avalanche will be given a live performance opportunity?
I don't think so. And I've been asked this on sort of every of the, there's only 3, but the 3 albums I've made, it's always like, oh, you're going to do this live. I don't see how I can do it live without sort of incorporating some sort of playback track thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's just too many sort of layers of parts, I think. I could potentially put a sort of some sort of band together to do it, but it's just this is where I tip my hat to like the people that are putting bands together and doing this, because it's hard work. You know, even sort of thinking of a venue, trying to arrange, organize things. And I'm not saying I'm not good at it, but it's something I have little experience with, actually bringing all those things together.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a part of a lot of other people's projects doing it,
Yep.
for sure. But, and then it's, well, a lot of the joy for me was just being creative in my studio with sound.
Yeah.
So it's not something I sort of feel like I have to promote and try to generate a vibe on from playing live shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I will do it live. I do have a little regret I didn't have an album launch party.
Okay.
And
yeah.
a friend of mine, Nick, who's a great producer and songwriter, he recommended I did this, and I should have listened to him. But he's like, man, just even for the sake of like, just put some money on a bar, invite your friends and some music people along, and listen to it, and shout everyone some drinks or whatever it is. But just take a moment to, reflect and appreciate what you've done and the work you've put into something, and
Yeah.
you've created something and you've put it out there. Like, it's just a bit of a celebration of it, rather than just, hey, it's online now on the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
Today, enjoy, bye. Which is kind of what I've done. But yeah. So a live, that's the cool thing if you do a live album show, I guess, like a launch, you get a bit of that sense.
Yeah.
And I've been involved in other people's projects where that has happened, and I do enjoy that. There's actually this weekend, though this podcast won't be out before 2 days, but yeah, Emma Donovan's album comes out. I don't know what the date is today. What's the date?
Today's the 18th.
Yeah, so it's out on the 19th.
Oh, cool.
Tomorrow. So we've got a show at Northside Records on Saturday, and that's great. Like having played on that album and then being part of an in-store performance at a record shop.
Yeah,
and the vinyl will be there.
Nice.
So yeah, it is nice being a part of all that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll see what comes next.
Yeah, maybe the next album. The next album I already have a concept for, and I could totally do that live.
Okay.
I think so. Maybe I will.
Yeah, cool.
Do something for that. Yeah, whether or not I get vinyl pressed, I don't know, but there could be some sort of celebration.
Yeah. I liked the play the album experience as an idea too. That also sounds quite special.
I did something for Replicants, the second album I released, where I think I forget what I did, but I got vinyl made for that. Man, that was a learning experience, getting vinyl produced, the big one for that, the big learning curve on that for me was I got the vinyl manufactured overseas.
Oh, okay.
And doing I did a cover of a Robert Plant song, Looking for Clues, which has Tim Rogers on it. And I'm really proud of that song, actually. It sounds great.
It's really cool.
That's PVC pipes and playing the keyboard parts, and timpani is the bass, and it's all sounds from the studio.
Yeah, right.
So, but when I got that vinyl made, I had to pay... there's the front door. Oh, it's Posty dropping something off. Cool. Yeah. I had to pay a publishing fee for that one song. Like I'd never recorded a cover before and got physical product made from it, so you have to pay a percentage of your retail price of your vinyl to the artist, to the publisher of that song. So it opened up this whole can of worms of I had to pay that, but then I had to pay myself a fee for all the other songs that I'd composed had co-writes on as well, which sort of came back to me in the end through my publisher. But, lots of people are taking cuts along the way.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, getting vinyl pressed, you kind of go, what do I do? But it's been really good because since then, a lot of people who have been in a similar situation, will call me up and ask me hey, where'd you get your vinyl done? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I've got something to share with them. But yeah, when I did that vinyl, I think I did a pre-order of vinyl, and I just, I don't have a big social media following. I think I put it out on social media and I sent some emails out, and maybe 20 or 30 people wanted to pre-order it, and I offered them a Zoom hang. I think this was just out of COVID or whatever, but it was It was a bit of a Zoom. I'm going to open up some session files in my studio and talk about some of the songs.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and isolate some parts and show off some of the instruments that were in my studio. Like the PVC pipes, it's hey, this is the sound that it made when they were played with a rubber thong. You've seen the Blue Man Group do it. Here's my interpretation of it. So, that was the sort of only kind of thing I did to officially launch that.
Yeah, sure.
But, anyway, who knows what's happening in the future? we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting. I'd love to have you back to chat about the next one once it's ready
Great.
to go.
Yeah, I would love to have you back at my house drinking tea with blankets on the couch.
Oh, it's great. Well, all right. Quick fire questions to end.
Sure. I'm just pre saying that I suck at quick answers. I'm really indecisive, so I'll try my best.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's all just about like you, and it's authentic and it's great. So
Okay.
thank you for sharing.
Sure.
What's your favourite venue to play in Melbourne?
I mean, the Forum's pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also the Jazz Lab comes to mind. Jazz Lab, because also I get this feeling that the sound on stage is sort of what the sound is in the room. And it's all the same sound. Listener, musician on stage, but we're all just kind of, in the same thing.
Yep.
So I dig that too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What's your dream venue to play at?
Let's go, I don't know, like Albert Hall.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Also, other side of the fence though, like still a dream venue, but the Vineyard in St Kilda, I've never played the Vineyard. And that's like one that I've been to a lot of gigs there, you know, and I've never done like a graveyard shift
Yeah, right.
at the Vineyard.
Wow.
So I kind of, and everyone I say that to, they're like, what are you talking about, man? That place, you don't want to play there. But it's like,
No.
I kind of do though, because I've seen so much great music there that I would love to play a set at the Vineyard.
I love the tension between the two.
Yeah. Look,
that's awesome.
polar opposites. Okay, cool.
What's your coffee order?
Generally, I'm going to say a piccolo. But I've also been known, because I get into making coffee here a bit at home, as I offered you. I tried to push coffee on you and you don't drink coffee. But if I'm ordering with someone else and they're ordering like a soy flat white, I'll get the same.
Ah.
Because I just think that's like one less milk jug that person has to wash or rinse out. So I'll try to just keep it like a bulk. It's like bulk billing. Barista bulk billing is my thing.
This shows how much of a considerate man you are.
Yeah, and you know,
it just flows
it's
everywhere.
it's all kind of cool. It's coffee. Like I'll be happy with whatever. It's fine. So, yeah.
All right. Well, what's your favorite place to get food after a gig in Melbourne?
You know, I haven't been eating after shows for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I try to sort of eat dinner at dinner time, and then drive home and be tired and go to bed. However, there was a great night. I don't know the name of the place we went to. I did a big band gig with Toshi Clinch's big band and Matt Jodrell.
Yes.
I think it was right before the pandemic. We had 2 nights at Chapel Off Chapel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I
which
remember
was
that.
Great. And
Yeah.
the second night, Matt was up for a hang, like, hey, who wants to go? There's like this New Orleans place, or it was off Chapel Street. And that was like a post-gig hang, like,
Yeah, cool.
you know, and it was a lot of fun. Like, you know, I think sometimes it's cool to, if I don't worry about like, well, will I sleep as good if I've got a full stomach or not? It was like, no, just, it was more socially enjoyable. It was good. You know, so that's been good. Another one maybe worth mentioning, I've done a couple of rehearsals at Sound Park and gone down to Danny's Burgers afterwards for a burger.
Cool. All right. Finally, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self?
You know, just don't worry about this, you know, the small stuff. It sounds so cliche, doesn't it? But really, younger me would, you know, think about some small things and make them bigger. you know, yeah, it's good. That's why traveling's kind of good too. You get thrown into some situations that suck, and then you come out afterwards and it wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, they're the things you kind of remember later on, and you look back on and laugh at a bit, you know.
Yeah.
I can tell you more. I could tell my younger self, you know, more memorable experiences of like touring and traveling where things went wrong with a sense of humility than I could remember the things that went right. You know, the things that went right, sometimes they just sort of get lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been some classics of like debaucherous things that happened. And, you know, even the last tour, I had visa problems in the US and I got pneumonia, and it was kind of cool now being of this age. Like, even when I was really grim and sick, it was like, that's cool. I'll remember this in years to come and I'll laugh about it.
Yeah.
You know, so that would be the sort of advice I would give myself. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. It's been such like a privilege to speak to you, Danny. So
Oh man, my
thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And right back at you, Luke. Thanks for coming over and chatting.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us on Our Drummers Musicians. I hope you enjoyed getting to know another Melbourne muso like I did. Help us grow by leaving a review, share the podcast with friends and family, and subscribe on our website for extra info. Got a guest you'd love to hear on the show? Please let us know at ourdrummersmusicians.com. See you next time.